Okay, so in this video, we're going to show you how to answer the AP Seminar EOC Part A. So the first part of this is to find the thesis. Question 1 of the EOC is to identify the author's argument, main idea, or thesis. This should be the question with the shortest answer. Correctly identifying the thesis for the article is important because the thesis statement is used to find the main argument or point for the piece. The thesis statement is usually located in the introduction or the conclusion. However, the thesis statement may not always be directly stated in the article and can sometimes be implied. So in this case, the thesis is implied, and we found that the author argues that greed is beneficial for the economy, but it is detrimental to one's mental health and is not morally responsible. And he does switch back and forth between perspectives, but he heavily leans on the fact that it is harmful for one's health.
Question 2 of the EOC Part A exam is explain the author's line of reasoning by identifying the claims used to build the argument and the connections between them. The response should go through the article and connect the claims to each other, and it should address claims and the subclaims. In this response, this should be linked back to the thesis statement. In order to identify the claims, look for points that start paragraphs and are structured as reasoning with evidence. When outlining the claims, don't forget to include textual support. In question 2, you also have to evaluate the claims and lines of reasoning. This is not as extensive as the evaluation in question 3. However, mention whether claims contain evidence and whether they are relevant to the thesis statement. Down here, main claim is introduced. With that said, we look at the evidence. Such findings are being hailed by social critics as proof that the greed of economy is toxic to well-being. This claim does support the thesis by implying it, but is not an assertion of the author's own ideas. Greed is the backbone of the prevailing philosophy of more that supports the profitable, big is beautiful trend. This is the main claim, and it introduces the subclaim. It does not connect to the thesis. The gluttonous aspect of greed-mindedness carries further short-term advantages by way of increased tendencies toward overconsumption. Subclaim does support the thesis by elaborating on it, supports the thesis by mentioning ethics. It is no wonder that greed enthusiasts insist that nothing can beat greed when it comes to the economy. Claim, but does not assert his own opinion or ideas. Acts as a subclaim, but not his idea. But others point out how greed, and its dying with the most toys cultural hero system, is infusing children around the globe with self-destructed degrees of materialism, avarice, and self-preoccupation. This shows the author's...
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way, like an improvisation.
Valid claim supports the author's main argument, not the author's personal opinion.
Question 3 of the EOC Part A exam is evaluate the effectiveness of the evidence the author...
Watch your profanity.
Question 3 of the EOC... Oh, hold on, really quickly. BS this. Question 3 of the EOC Part A exam is evaluate the effectiveness of the evidence the author uses to support the claims made in the argument. This response should be about identifying the evidence and evaluating its effectiveness. You must also determine how effectively the claims support the thesis. Are they realistic, logical? While you cannot research the sources given, you can determine whether the author is biased based on factors such as which newspaper the article was written for. You must also evaluate whether the claims support the thesis because their effectiveness can either strengthen or weaken the author's claim. Okay, so with the General Survey of the United States, this is a statistical evidence piece, but it does not support a claim and acts as an introduction to the subject somewhat. Since it comes in the beginning paragraph, this is very weak evidence. We then move down to the third paragraph where there's a description of Bauman's book, and this serves as evidence to support the claim up in paragraph 2, which is this claim right here. We then move down all the way to paragraph 6 where he says, for example, aggressive advertising by the soft drink industry has seen high sugar soft drink consumption double in children aged 6 to 11, which is a major contributor to the worsening epidemic of childhood obesity and diabetes. This is evidence in form of an example, and it gives plausible statistics, but it has no credibility for the lack of citation. We then move down to more and more mental health professionals saying that greed is not nearly as good for people as it is for economies. This doesn't establish credibility or reliability because the source is not specified. And the mental health is biased because those involved in mental health industry would want to advocate for their side being more important than economics. He then, in the next paragraph, defines the term pleonexia and affluenza and the reasons what pathological greed can do to a person. This is valid evidence because it is a fact. It connects to the previous paragraph about mental health to specify effects. Finally, he ends the article with evidence as support to his thesis, but doesn't assert his own claim. Even though the source is credible, it weakens the argument by relying only on claims of others, not himself. In the end, your response should also include the overall conclusion for the validity of the argument. During the conclusion, you should look at all of the criteria as a whole and determine if the argument is strong or weak. Overall, did the author accomplish their goal? Summarize factors such as bias and the relativity of the claims to the thesis. In this argument, the author somewhat accomplished his goal. Since he did not definitively state his thesis, it was implied. We had to go off of what we thought was his implication, greed being beneficial for the economy but detrimental to one's mental health. Therefore, he did accomplish his goal, but the bias and the relativity of his argument to his pseudo-claims don't help as well as they could, so therefore the argument is somewhat valid. Thank God it is done.